the other country that I am directly connected to, Turkey.
5 nights of massive countrywide protests across Turkey. This is the country's largest city, Istanbul, and the demonstrations show no sign of letting up. They're angry, they're scared, and they're ready to battle. This is the result of years of pent-up frustration, of soaring inflation, and what many perceive as creeping authoritarianism.
A lot of pepper spray being sprayed, and the police are pushing back. There's a huge squash on, and they are pushing forward, trying to get people to disperse. There's a real jam here.
Many of those here are young and more worried about their future than the repercussions of protesting.
We feel like they took our democracy, and we are trying to take it back from that.
I want freedom, I want a good future for myself and for my friends, for all of the Turkey. I want my democracy back.
We don't feel safe in any way right now, so we don't think that our votes count. We don't think we really matter in Turkey, so.
In the capital, Ankara, too, another huge turnout of protesters. This is as much a raw demonstration against the current president as it is support for the man who wants to replace him. They are the biggest anti-government demonstrations in more than a decade. For many here, President Erdogan is the only leader they've ever known. He's been at the helm of Turkish power for more than 20 years, and they see the latest arrests as an attempt by him to snuff out a significant opponent. The Istanbul mayor, Ekrem İmamoğlu, is widely viewed as the most serious political rival to President Erdogan. He's a fierce communicator, demonstrating social media savvy by calmly filming his own detention from his walk-in closet, whilst calling on his followers to defend democracy. We are facing a big oppression, he's saying, and called his arrest on corruption and terror charges a political coup. That's an accusation that's fiercely denied by the Turkish president, who accused the opposition of trying to create chaos and warned it wouldn't be tolerated.
The days of going out into the streets, taking left-wing organizations, extremists and vandals with you and threatening the national will are now behind us.
Millions of people turned out to vote for the Istanbul mayor as the opposition party's nomination for president, an election not due till 2028, even as he was jailed ahead of a trial, along with dozens of his staff and municipal officials. The voters kept on coming in record numbers, despite the mayor also facing a separate set of charges of aiding a terror group.
Yeah, notice how it's very one note. It's always, oh, you're aiding and abetting a terror group. It's the number one trick authoritarian rulers love applying. Also, I'm seeing a lot of fucking dumbasses in the chat being like, is the mayor of Istanbul pro or anti-Israel? There is no one in Turkey that is more pro-Israel than Recep Tayyip Erdogan, okay? I know you read some dumb fuck on Twitter being like, oh, the Istanbul mayor is actually super pro-Israel and Erdogan is super anti-Israel, like, or whatever kind of silly-ass fucking pro-Erdogan propaganda that you're reading. You are a dumb fuck, okay? You are dumb. You are a dumb person. Stop reading random shit on Twitter and then believing it 100%, okay? Jesus Christ. There are literally people who think Erdogan is the great defender of Islam and the great defender of Muslims around the world, the number one defender of Palestinians, when Erdogan and this administration in Turkey still is responsible for sending unlimited energy to Israel through Azerbaijan and also consistently have done trade through Erdogan's own son's shipping company to Israel, even after Erdogan aesthetically claimed that there would be a full tilt BDS, full tilt boycott, divestments, and sanctions movement on Israel. He established that because everyone was yelling at him And then he kept sending ships to Israel. He is still doing trade with Israel. They just keep changing the the final destination of the ships. They claim it's going to Palestine when it's not. It's just going to Israel. Okay? Erdogan saying something and Erdogan doing something are entirely different. You have to look to what he is doing rather than what he is saying. This has always been the case.
In President Erdogan's Turkey, protests have often been swiftly crushed and challenges to his authority met by crackdowns and arrests. The country is waiting to see what happens now. And
there is virtually no politician. There is virtually no politician in Turkey that is like pro-Israel, okay? Openly pro-Israel, at least. Turkey as a nation state is super anti-Israel. Turkey, on the other hand, is a NATO nation state. Turkey is under the NATO banner. Turkey is a NATO country. Turkey is the second largest standing military in NATO. Turkey has American nukes. Turkey has American nukes in the Incirlik base in Turkey. Turkey has missile systems initially during the Cold War that were directed at the USSR. This is how the Cuban Missile Crisis started. It's ridiculous to assume that this country would not be pro-Israel in action.
How their president is going to deal with this palpable discontent. Alex Crawford, Sky News, Istanbul.
Well, the European Union has called on Turkey to...
Recep Tayyip Erdogan is turning Turkey into a... This is the funniest thing. Like, Israel Katz and all these people in Israel are so stupid that they think that Recep Tayyip Erdogan is like anti-Israel, right? So they're complaining about Recep Tayyip Erdogan. They're saying like, oh, he's an Islamist. He's an Islamist. He's turning Turkey into an authoritarian Islamist nation. And it's kind of funny that they're saying this because they themselves are so stupid that they don't understand the dynamic between Erdogan and Israel, I guess. Or they're deliberately doing it in an effort to give Erdogan some ass covering, I guess. Erdogan is taking a Turkish state with scientific, cultural, technological, and economic capabilities and destroying it, eroding the legacy of Atatürk, who built a progressive and prosperous Turkey. Let's hope for better days, at Ekrem İmamoğlu. This is Israel's Minister of Defense. Ekrem İmamoğlu's account responds and says, I am returning your statement, which insults the flag of the Republic of Turkey and the president as it is. We have no need to receive lessons on democracy and law from those responsible for the suffering and deaths of countless innocents, including children. Yes, a brighter future is indeed possible when Palestine is free. There you go. If you think that like any fucking popular Turkish politician is going to be like, yeah, I love Israel, you are deluded. You don't know anything about Turkish politics. You're out of your freaking mind. Every single one of these donkeys that initially were against the Erdogan regime or even within the Erdogan regime that despise Arabs initially said lightly pro-Israel shit. There were even politicians that went in front of the Meclis and said, if you like Palestine so much, why don't you go fight for the Arabs yourself? I'll send you there. Every single one of them went back and are now unconditionally pro-Palestine. Okay? Because unlike the Gulf nation states, I guess actually very similar to the Gulf nation states, I will say, where the public is incredibly pro-Palestine, the politicians have to also be incredibly pro-Palestine. It's exactly like the Gulf states when you think about it. I was going to say, unlike the Gulf nation states, where the public is pro-Palestine, but the leaders are not. No, it's the same dynamic. Every single country would love for the Palestinians to be completely fucking wiped out. Every single one of these countries would love for all Palestinians to be wiped out. They would want it. They would dream of a future where they don't have to, they don't have to deal with this any longer, where they can just like openly be aligned with Israel. But the only reason why they have to maintain, at least on the aesthetic side, this anti-Israel posture is because their population will overthrow them. Okay? Whether they be the Gulf nation states or whether it be monarchies or whether it be an authoritarian leadership under the Erdogan regime, if they were to just actively say, fuck you guys, we love Israel, they're a Western nation, we want to be a Western aligned nation, shut the fuck up, they're giving us the best weapons of all time, I love these security contracts, and if they were open about their desires, if they were open about their loyalty and their interest in developing security agreements with Israel, they would get assassinated. But make no mistake, as I've said already, the notion that any Turkish politician is going to be like actively pro-Israel out and about is crazy. It's silly. Look at what they are doing, not what they're saying. But even then, what they're saying is never going to be pro-Israel. It's going to be pro-Palestine. That's not AI? No, it's not. It's a whirling dervish in front of the cops, getting tear gassed directly. It's a disappointing day. Every day is disappointing. There will be no day of peace going forward, I don't think.
Respect the rights of peaceful protesters after Ankara said it had arrested more than 1,000 people since anti-government demonstrations began last week. Tens of thousands of people returned to the streets across Turkey on Sunday in defiance of a ban on rallies. They're angry about the arrest of Ekrem İmamoğlu, the mayor of Istanbul and a key political rival of President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Demonstrators accused the Turkish president of trying to remove a major political opponent ahead of elections in 2028. Mr. İmamoğlu was taken into custody pending trial on corruption charges. With more protests in major cities expected, DW has been hearing from people on the streets of Istanbul.
Justice must be served. It cannot be this way and it cannot continue like this. But we don't know what to do either. Everyone is conflicted right now. They don't know what to do, they don't know how to act. If I go to a protest, it's a crime. But if I don't, it's a problem.
Support for İmamoğlu will increase. Instead of going to prison, he's on the path to the presidency. They put the man who committed no crime in prison. If he had committed a crime, then fine. You know, President Erdogan went to prison for 3 months in 1999. İmamoğlu is on this path right now. We will protest like this. We can do it without breaking things left.
Why is Erdogan doing this now, 3 years out from the election? Because he has... Oh, God. This is why I wish my editors actually posted a Turkey video, because I talked about it, and this is like the 8th time I'm talking about it. This is the one, 2 reasons. One, because Ekrem İmamoğlu said he was going to run, he was going to announce his candidacy for the presidency. That's number one. Number two, this is the maximum amount of support that he has from Western leaders. He did this because right now, this is the tippy top. He is never going to, I mean, who knows what happens in the future, but like, as of this very moment, up until he did this, he was at the tippy top of foreign policy support, like foreign leadership support, with what he did in Syria, fucking over Russia, even though he's always had a will they, won't they with Russia, just completely undermining Russia in Syria and allowing his, allowing his forces alongside NATO-trained forces, alongside HTS to overtake the Syrian government, which was a massive benefit to Israel. That instability was a massive benefit to Israel. That instability was a massive benefit to Western interests in the region, which will inevitably thwart Syria back into the throes of civil war. But that was done virtually entirely with Erdogan. Then Erdogan turning around and posing alongside, with the instability caused by Donald Trump, Erdogan posing alongside Zelensky and saying, we will defend you no matter what with our standing military. We have the second largest standing military in NATO. That was another massive, forceful, authoritative moment for Erdogan. He has a lot of clout right now in the Western world. He has always been very clever at foreign policy, always. And I don't mean that that's a good thing, just so you understand. Make no mistake. He's just always been a very clever foreign policy guy, but that usually means very brutal, okay? If you noticed, there have been, even with this level of political repression, I have yet to see Western leaders actively come out and be like, what are you doing? Stop this, please. Normally, under different circumstances, the American government has levers to pull, right? A lot of these guys are very corrupt. Erdogan especially is like, him and Vladimir Putin are Olympic level corrupt. Erdogan, I've said before, has single-handedly almost used the Turkish government, an entire government, and all of its wealth as his own personal wallet. Rarely do you ever have a singular force be responsible for the dire economic situation in a country. Rarely. And it's still not entirely in the hands of Erdogan, but it's close. This is one of the few unique instances where, like, his own corruption, like the way that he runs the government for the past 22 years, is unironically a major part of Turkey's economic demise. Think about that. Think about how much power one person has. It is crazy. Yeah, I said it's like what people think North Korea is. Exactly. Modi is a good example, but I don't know enough about the minutia of Indian politics. But yeah, you are right. Modi is a really good example. I think it's a really good analog. I mean, yeah, everyone is becoming more and more. Everyone's becoming more fascist. Everyone's becoming more comfortable in their authoritarian tendencies. It's countries are becoming more reactionary in general. Do you think him overcoming the CIA-backed coup has anything to do with clout in Western politics? No. That actually solidified support for him. That was the most internal support he ever had. Understandably so, because the CIA-backed coup was literally using American fighter jets to kill Turkish citizens. Like, you had tanks, you had Turkish citizens with guns, okay, overtake the parallel state that the CIA agent Fethullah Gülen had established within the Turkish government. And overcoming that was a major W for Recep Tayyip Erdogan. And everyone, like, that was the moment where his popularity skyrocketed again. Oop, we're calling him a CIA agent now? Finally, you talk about Turkey. Oğlum salak mısın sen? Gerçekten salak mısın? Bir, Fethullah Gülen tabii ki de CIA'nin ajanıydı. Niye Poconos'da yaşıyordu? Neden her yerde okulu var? Amerika yardım ettiği için. Birincisi bu. Ben bunu devamlı da söylüyorum. Yıllardır konuştuğum bir şey bu yani. İkincisi de Türkiye ile ilgili de konuşuyorum. Her gün Türkiye ile ilgili konuşuyorum. Sen kendin görmedin. Sen kendin görmediysen benim suçum değil yani. Salak adamlar ya, inanamıyorum. Anyway. Abi buradan sonra yukarı mı çıkarız, aşağı devam mı? Vallahi bilemiyorum. Gerçekten bilemiyorum. Bilmiyorum yani. Nereye gider bu bilmiyorum. Ama insanları bu kadar kızdıramazsın yani. Götüne girer günün sonunda. Yeah, this is where Fethullah Gülen used to live. I say used to because he's dead. Now he died. He was a CIA asset inside the rural Pennsylvania compound where an influential Muslim cleric lives in exile. You can also tell he's a fucking CIA asset because the Washington Post is writing about him in such positive terms. Okay? This was the modern version of Wahhabist influence. Okay? Americans, initially the British, and then the Americans pumped up the Wahhabists alongside the Saudi family, the Saudi royal family, with hopes that they could thwart any sort of socialist influence in the pan Arabic nationalist movements that were creating nation states all around the MENA region and all around the Gulf. But then those guys got out of control. They were great when, you know, you were using them against the USSR and to thwart any kind of like socialist tendencies that these countries might have had. But then they got out of control. So what did the American government do? They literally went to Turkey and they were like, oh, we'll just find a more tolerant version, a more Western, more pro-Western version of a Muslim cleric, this cult that Fethullah Gülen operated, and we'll just let him be a force of influence that presents a more tolerant version of Islamism that is still inherently, of course, very reactionary and, of course, very anti-socialist, anti-communist, fascist, but not as uncontrollable as like what the Salafist movement had become. And because Erdogan and Fethullah Gülen initially were cut from the same cloth, Fethullah Gülen had a tremendous amount of political power within Turkey, basically created what is known as a parallel state, paralel devlet, all the way from members of the military, members of the police force, to the courts, and also parts of the parliament. This is a real living, breathing example of the deep state, which initially was a term created during the Cold War in Turkey to begin with. Erdogan and Fethullah Gülen parted ways, and America wanted to pressure, like the CIA wanted to put pressure on the Erdogan administration because they were worried that he wasn't playing ball. Maybe he was playing both sides a little too much, and they wanted a guy they could control even better. The coup failed. Erdogan got a lot of political capital after that. He got so much political capital that he actually implemented martial law and then put a referendum to change the constitution of the Turkish Republic to no longer be a parliamentary system and instead be a presidential system. And he won that referendum. People voted for it. But since then, Erdogan has still played ball with the Western powers. Now, I brought up all of this. Because America has still had levers of pressure that they can pull on the Erdogan regime, and they often do. They have endless amounts of court dockets that they can go back to, endless amounts of information that they can go back to with respect to Erdogan's corruption. The American government does not hate corrupt authoritarians. They love corrupt authoritarians because they can always start a lawsuit. The Southern District of New York is very famous for this. Whenever there is anything that Erdogan is doing, like maybe they're getting Russian missile defense systems, even though they're a NATO country, right? Maybe they're getting Russian missile defense systems, new ones, while simultaneously they are a part of the F-35 program, both on the manufacturing side, and they're slated to get F-35 fighter jets from the United States of America. Well, you can't have Russian missile defense systems and F-35 jets operate on the same platform, and then, because then, you know, Russians will take that information and have better missile defense systems against F-35s. So whenever something like that happens, as Erdogan plays both sides in an effort to come out on top, the American government will just pull one of the levers of pressure that they can. They'll just turn around and open up a court case to one of Erdogan's 500 different corrupt holding groups. And that's precisely a mechanism of control that the American government loves to use to pressure corrupt authoritarians, okay? Just so you understand. Yeah, they fuck with his bag, if you will. Because if you have a lot of weaknesses, if you're an outwardly corrupt if you're an outwardly corrupt authoritarian, then the American government can just so easily be like, oh, you don't want to play ball? Okay. Well, we are going to seize all of your assets. And then they'll quietly pack up those court cases as soon as Erdogan plays ball. No, this is why I need people to understand. This is why I say no country operates on this planet without thinking about how America will react or how the Western world will react, even though the Western world is basically just the United States of America for the most part, at least until this last Trump administration. That allegiance is like kind of crumbling a little bit. It's probably on its last breath. So that is the reason why Recep Tayyip Erdogan is using the political capital it has in the Western world right now to do this, to eliminate a very popular political opponent. That's it. That's why it's happening right now and not 3 years down the line when the election will happen. He's trying to pack it up as because this is the most opportune moment, because this is the highest amount of clout that he has in the eyes of Western leadership. He knows his influence domestically has fallen apart after decades of hyperinflation, which even his expansive welfare programs are not able to keep up with. And the people that are not recipients of these expansive welfare programs, because they're not a part of the party apparatus, are understandably getting poorer and poorer and more angry, more resentful. So he has to do something about like a viable opposition.
And right, without harming the security forces by using our democratic rights. Shouting and screaming, breaking things is not the solution either.
Well, our correspondent Dorian Jones is also in Istanbul. Welcome, Dorian. President Erdogan addressed this unrest at a cabinet meeting today. What did he say?
Yes, he came out with a very tough speech after his cabinet meeting, saying that describing the unrest as a movement of violence. He went on again to accuse the protesters of being street terrorists, and then attacked the leader of the opposition, Özgür Özel, for accusing him of inciting and provoking this unrest. He also spent some time on defending the prosecution of the Istanbul mayor, Ekrem İmamoğlu, which triggered all of this unrest, saying it had revealed a conspiracy of treachery and of theft. He then went on to say that it is underlined that the opposition were unfit to hold any power, even a street buffet. So very, very tough rhetoric from the president, and an indication there's going to be no stepping back from the robust approach towards the protesters that's going on as we speak.
OK, so no stepping back from the authorities, but the demonstrators don't seem to be stepping back either. We're up for a sixth consecutive night of demonstrations in Istanbul and elsewhere, despite this government ban. Are they likely to keep going?
Well, that really is the big question. I mean, ever since the unrest started on Wednesday, following the arrest of İmamoğlu, the protests have got larger and larger.
For the people who are asking, do you personally think İmamoğlu would be a good leader? Is he still right-wing like Erdogan or a liberal like Kemal? He is a liberal. He's a social democrat. And I'm sure that he would also do a bunch of corruption if he were ever to get power. The difference, however, is that there is no way for him to physically be as corrupt as Recep Tayyip Erdogan, which is precisely the reason why it's still the preferable outcome here. It's no different than having a conversation about like who gets to lead Gaza, right? Who gets to be the political authority in Gaza. These sorts of conversations, I think, ultimately are silly. It's like, yeah, no, he's not my favorite politician. I mean, he is pretty good overall, but it's just like there's nothing. It's not a Harris versus Trump. No, it's different. No. This is not like a Harris versus Trump situation at all. It's like if you had the dynamic is different in the sense that it would be more like I don't even know how to describe it. Like the differences between Harris and Trump are fairly significant, of course, albeit marginal on the grand scheme of things, but still fairly significant. But Gülen is the GOAT. Fuck Erdogan. Okay, dude. Dumbass. Yeah, he's dead. So, yeah, it'd be like maybe like a Waltz versus Trump, but even then, like this is not a this is not like marginal differences. Like there is a tremendous amount of political repression that Erdogan has implemented in the 22 years that he's been in, 22 plus years that he's been in power. It's not even remotely comparable. There's no, you can't compare it. No, it's like Tim Walz versus Putin, kind of, yeah. Or Kamala Harris versus Putin.
Larger here in Istanbul, and also they've continued to spread across the country, over half the country's provinces.
Bro, Gülen's movement literally sided with Erdogan until 2013, where they exposed his little heist. But FETÖ literally tried to expose... Oh my God. I can't believe that an American CIA cutout, an American CIA asset exposed the Erdogan regime's corruption. And that's the reason why they fell, you know, they no longer were aligned with one another. Thank you, chatter. Totally. This isn't even a defense of Erdogan. I despise him, and he is his regime is part of the reason why I can't go back to Turkey. It's so funny to say that, like, the guy who is incredibly pro-NATO, that does the bidding of American empire, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, is totally different than... like, these guys are cut from the same cloth. They're literally from the same backers initially. I'm trying to understand CIA agent Fethullah Gülen. I'm not defending Erdogan. Fuck him. Gülen's movement is a CIA movement. Him exposing the Erdogan corruption that everybody is fucking aware of is no different than the American government, I don't know, opening up another lawsuit against Erdogan for corruption. Opening up another like corruption lawsuit against Erdogan. It's one and the same.
Have ongoing protests, and it is expected to be another wave of
You will not find many Turkish people that will say, oh, we hate Erdogan, so you know what's better? A fucking CIA agent Muslim cleric living in the Poconos. Well, he's dead now, so we don't even have to worry about him. But regardless, what a ridiculous thing to say. Yeah, we don't... It's like... For Venezuelans, it's like saying, oh, well, people don't like Maduro. People are not so hot on Maduro. So Venezuelans, you know who they want? Juan Guaido. Okay? Guess what? There's not a lot of motion behind Juan Guaido either. Okay? People can simultaneously not like Maduro and also hate the idea that they're going to be ruled by a fucking dude who is a fucking dude who's like also an American asset. Hard to explain to Americans how American foreign influence works because it's by design kept hidden and complicated. I know. But as a Turkish person who also lives in the United States of America, I try to do my very best, but it's like impossible for Americans to fucking understand it. It's like, you know, every single Turk in my chat fucking despises Erdogan, except for like the hogs, I guess. But if I were to ask them individually, like, would you rather have a CIA puppet like Fethullah Gülen run the country, they would say, fuck no. That's precisely the reason why Erdogan actually gained popularity after the coup failed. It's impossible for Americans to understand this stuff, though. Impossible. That's why I try to explain to people, like, no, most countries outside of the periphery that are still, you know, secondary Western aligned nations like Turkey, or especially countries in the Middle East, might have anger and resentment towards their leadership. Okay? Turks certainly despise Erdogan. Almost 50%, if not larger than 50% of the country hates Erdogan. Okay? And the coalition government he has. Having said that, they would not prefer an American CIA puppet who is also cut from the same background as Erdogan. Who comes from the same background as Erdogan. Al birini vur ötekine.
protests and violence as confrontations seem to be almost inevitable between the security forces and the protesters. The key question is, can they sustain this? I think that Erdogan will be banking on the fact that that at some point they will start to lose energy, the apathy. Also, he could be eyeing that this weekend is a major religious holiday when people traditionally go away during that break. He could see that as an opportunity for the unrest to start dissipating, and that possibly would be then an opportunity from Erdogan's possible calculations to move in harder.
Actually, sadly, there are many Venezuelans who would be happy if Venezuela was led by a CIA asset. Yeah, they live in America, though. That's the difference.
On the protests, to try and...
There's plenty of fucking Gülenists who live in... It's interesting because the pro-Erdogan coalition, by and large, is in fucking Germany, okay? And the pro-Fethullah Gülen coalition of Turks is by and large in the United States of America. The ones who fucking hate Erdogan and Fethullah Gülen are stuck in Turkey. Those are the motherfuckers who have to deal with Erdogan or would have to potentially deal with Fethullah Gülen. Those are the motherfuckers who hate both, but they're in Turkey, so you never hear from them. Ask a German Turk about Erdogan and they'll tell you, oh my God, he's the greatest. He is the best, okay? Ask an American Turk about Fethullah Gülen, they'd be like, oh, he'd be so much better. Not all the Turks in America, but like there are plenty who are secretly Gülenists for sure. Ask a Turkish person living in Turkey, unless they're a fucking Erdogan hog, okay? They're going to tell you very quickly that they despise both Fethullah Gülen and Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Siktir lan, hepimiz öyle demiyoruz Almanya'da. Okey, tamam lan Almancılar, kızmayın, hepiniz değilsiniz böyle. Amerika'dakilerin hepsi de FETÖ'cü değil yani. Ulan ben de Amerika'dayım yani. Ama bayağı bir Almancı kontenjanı var yani. Erdoğan'ı seven görüyoruz, duyuyoruz. Evet, AKP'ciler.
Break them up. For now, at least, in spite these bans that have existed.
I don't think many of the Gülenist Turks see Gülen as a potential leader for the Turks. I don't think they realize it's a CIA-backed government movement either. Yeah, they despise Gülen for the same reasons that they despise Erdogan, because Gülen and Erdogan come from the same group. It's the same movement. Yes, they parted ways, but it was initially the same movement. There are a lot of the people that are in this anti-Erdogan coalition. Turkish politics is interesting, okay? The Kemalists are by and large liberals, okay? A lot of the socialist movements in Turkey, a lot of the workers' movements in Turkey are backed by the pro-Kurdish movements. So in terms of like permissible politics in Turkey, in terms of like popular support and popular mobilization, a lot of that is done against the government on the boundaries of liberalism. And many of these liberals find themselves to be like European-style Turks, okay? They despise Erdogan because of his Islamist conservatism, and they think Recep Tayyip Erdogan, understandably, because Erdogan has done this, they look at Erdogan and his movement as like a disgusting, backwards, regressive movement, which it is, to be fair. They think it goes against, they think Erdogan is going against the Kemalist principles of like liberal, secular Turkey. Much like my criticisms of the Democratic Party in America and liberals in America, I have criticisms of the Turkish liberals as well. It's hilarious comparing Trump to Erdogan. Trump could have never outmaneuvered Kemalists like Erdogan did after 2011. No, that's fair. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right about that. Damn, Ninjammer, why the fuck do you know that? That's surprising. Are you Turkish? His first 2 terms as PM, he tried to portray himself as pro-democracy to avoid getting on the Kemalist radar. It's crazy how much that guy can lie and get away with. Yes, the joke in Turkey is that he's a fucking chameleon. Recep Tayyip Erdogan is everything and anything at any moment, okay? One day he is a pan-Turanist who says he's going to unite the Turkic Empire, okay? The other day, he is the leader of the Ummah, and he's going to restore the caliphate. The next day, he's Israel's strongest soldier, quietly, while simultaneously saying, fuck Israel, Netanyahu is a Nazi. Yeah, Recep Tayyip Erdogan rose to power as a pro-European reformer who, unsurprisingly, and I literally covered this when I was working as an intern at Bloomberg in Turkey. Ironically enough, he rose to power by privatizing state-owned enterprise. The Western world loved this guy. He was the great privatizer. Turkey at the time, before Erdogan, still had a shit ton of state-owned enterprises, state-owned franchises. Erdogan fucking privatized all of it, sold it to foreign investors. And European leaders and foreign leaders loved it, okay? So he is anything and everything. He is a chameleon. Whatever suits his purpose at any given moment, he will be that, okay? He covers every aspect of he covers every political quadrant. He is the great expander of the welfare state, okay? So he's a social democrat at times. It doesn't matter. All that matters is he can still keep using the Turkish government like a fleshlight, okay?
In all of Turkey's major cities, the protests still continue. The question is, how long will the security forces allow this to continue? But for Erdogan, the calculation will be of a further crackdown, risk a further escalation in the protests. A difficult situation the president's in.
And we were looking at live pictures as you were speaking there, Dorian. So we have apparently two issues here.
Turkish libs are in a perpetual state of pro-European liberalism and nationalism, where they really want to be European, but when things heat up and EU tells them to fuck off, they come back to nationalist isolationism. Yes. Turks also will so easily be like, you are the servant of the British Empire, which is one of my favorite takes. İngiliz uşağı. Okay? You're a servant of the British Empire. Meanwhile, there's fucking NATO bases everywhere. Like, they will say, I am simultaneously a Fethullah Gülen supporter, but also gay because I paint my fingernails. And also will say that I am pro-America. I'm an American, I'm a pro-America guy. Meanwhile, I'm over here talking about how American influence on Turkish politics is the reason why Turkey is as fucked as it is.
We have the apparent politically motivated arrest of Ekrem İmamoğlu and Turkey's handling of the protests because of that arrest. How is this unrest affecting the country's reputation?
Did Erdogan hit the Islamist button before or after the coup attempt? No, he was always an Islamist. He always ran on religious freedom. Okay? That was his shtick. He was like pro-European, pro-capitalist, pro-abolishing state-owned enterprises, but he also built his base. Dude, there are so many parallels with Trump, okay? It is so annoying. It is so annoying to relitigate this shit because I grew up with it, and then I watched it happen in 2016, and now I'm watching the second stage of it, okay? When he came to power, he had to develop a base of support. That base of support came from all around the country of Turks, Muslim Turks who felt like they were being oppressed by the laïcité, the secular, the forcible secular values implemented in the Turkish constitution, okay, under the Kemalist revolution. And he basically said, like, all of that is ruining the lives of Turkish Muslims. Like, they're repressed. They're repressed religiously. They're not allowed to be religious in public or whatever. It was true though? No, I don't think it was. I don't think it is true. Well, there's some truth to it, but it's not as cut and dry as you present it. Okay. Because when you look at the outcome of that, like the hijab ban, for example, the initial hijab ban in Turkey, and him basically taking that out, saying that you can wear a hijab in public institutions, was seen as, from the eyes of the population of Turks that like truly wanted this to be able to express their religious freedoms. There was a hijab ban? Yes, of course. In Turkey, it was illegal to wear a hijab when you were working in public office. Laïcité. I have a complicated opinion on this because Turkey is a Muslim country. It's different than when it's done in Quebec. It's different than when it's done in France. Sent to Islam religious school as a child, Imam Hatip. He was renowned by his friends for readings of the Quran. However, he avoided the pitfalls of the National Order Party because he grew up watching Necmet Erbakan. So I think he knew what not to do. Turkey, since its foundation, since its inception, has always been a secular nation. A secular nation that literally has, ironically enough, a religious ministry. Okay? It's very difficult to understand with a Western lens. Okay? We have Diyanet Bakanlığı. It's a religious ministry. Okay? But it's also a fucking secular country. Bakanlık değil, Diyanet. Is it not a part of the government? I don't understand. Does it başkanlık o? Bakanlık değil. Senin ben amına koyayım başkanlık. I mean, yeah, it's a regulatory agency. It's like saying the Chamber of Commerce is technically not a part of the American government. It's not. It sounds like an American government, and it has a lot of influence within the government, but it's technically not a part of the government. It's the same shit. The Chamber of Commerce isn't a regulatory agency. It's a special interest lobbying group. Tamam abi, tabii ki hükümetin oyuncağı ama onu öyle anlatman önemli bence. Yes, I covered Hamdan being lynched and being disappeared by the IOF chatters. He came in, Recep Tayyip Erdogan came in and took out the hijab ban that was very popular for his base and very unpopular for a lot of the anti-Erdogan coalition. Okay, this is important to recognize in order to understand like the liberal attitude, the Turkish liberal attitude in the country,
and indeed its economy.
Well, that really is a question that people will be asking. I mean, there has been growing criticism, particularly from the European Union, which has been voicing concern over the handling of the protests, as well as the arrest and imprisonment of Ekrem İmamoğlu. But it has to be said that the influence of the European Union has very little these days, given the fact that
why would that be unpopular? Because Turkey, by and large, pre-Erdogan, and its relationship with Islam is more complicated than you think. It's more complicated than you understand. Okay? In the eyes of many Turks, the I would say 50% anti-Erdogan coalition, they have a very different approach to Islam. I wouldn't even say as progressive as my approach to Islam and being Muslim, but close enough. And for them, that requires a decent amount of suppression of more conservative elements of Islam forcibly by the government. Okay? And historically speaking, despite the fact that the Ottoman Empire was the caliphate, even their approach to Islam was quite different than the modern version that you see from Wahhabis. You know? It is significantly less tolerant now. The example I will use is the 18th century reforms that came in Turkey that literally decriminalized anal sex, okay, and homosexuality and homosexual behavior far before Europe ever even approached the subject matter. And that was done as a response. And even before then, it wasn't that, Tanzimat. It's a very different attitude from a predominantly Muslim country towards its own expression of Islam. Most of the Turks are Muslim as much as you are. They're just unaware deists. Yeah. Ironically enough, I think that there was a lot of response that divided the country with Erdogan's religious freedom movement, where that created a counterculture against that sort of thing.
Turkey's largely given up on the idea of being a member of Europe, although President Erdogan today said that European Union cannot survive without Turkey. And I think he was looking to the fact that Turkey has the second largest army in NATO, and Europe is increasingly looking to its own resources to defend against the Russian threat. So Erdogan believes he has more leverage over Europe than Europe has over Erdogan. But I think the one Achilles heel, or the one thing that major concern for Erdogan, will be the economy and the financial markets. Ever since the arrest of Imam there has been a vast exiting of foreign investors, and the central bank has been forced to spend up to $30 billion defending the currency. How long they can sustain that is a key question, and that will be a concern on Erdogan, and probably a factor that he really will want these protests to come to an end. For the protesters, they see that as an opportunity to put further pressure on Erdogan over the imprisonment of Imamoglu.
Thank you, Dorian. DW correspondent Dorian Jones in Istanbul.
Okay. I don't know where this will go, but I don't foresee it being anywhere good. Erdogan is excellent at playing both sides in Turkey too. He issues statements that were more populist, like, we don't need bearded men who are good Quran reciters. We need people who do their job properly, while also avoiding taking his wife to state gatherings so she wouldn't have to uncover her head. Yeah. On the one hand, I don't care if people want to wear the hijab, okay, while they're doing their jobs. On the other hand, in Turkey, the expression of political Islam being brought to the forefront is not just about people getting religious freedoms to wear the hijab, but instead all of the accompanying forms of suppression that move Turkey away from being a secular or socially progressive nation. That's the problem. That's why I say it's complicated. Okay? That's it. It's like in the United States of America, Christian nationalists coming to power and saying, we have to do religious freedom. That's what Trump said, right? We have to do religious freedom for the Christians in this country, the Christians in this nation. We got to do religious freedom for them. And that religious freedom is not about like closing fucking, it's not about like, it's not about offering Christians the freedom to be able to, do Christianity in public. They literally can do that, okay? But instead, it's more so to suppress whatever Christians have decided is anti-Christian, like gay people, trans people. That's it. Is there a rural-urban religious divide? There used to be, not anymore, because all the urban parts are very religious as well. There's just a 50%, a 50-50. Anyway, let's move into now the state of affairs in the United States of America.